started playing guitar when I was 13 and just kind of randomly happened. I needed a gift for Christmas and I had no ideas, and my mom kept pestering me about it. And I paged through a J.C. Penney catalog and saw a guitar and thought, hey, I want that. And of course, she tried to talk me out of it, briefly anyway, for a short while. And, that's how I got my first guitar for Christmas. And, about 6 months after that, I became obsessed with it and just basically playing all the time, couldn't put it down, trying to learn as much as I could. And yeah, it just kind of escalated from there. And I began to get into other kinds of music besides rock, blues, jazz, you name it. Anything that was there to learn from was, I went for and stole from all different kind of places. At a certain point, I started writing my own stuff and making demos. And I sent a demo in to Guitar Player magazine to Mike Varney, who wrote a column called Spotlight for New Talent. And he would every month, there'd be a full page and he'd feature three different unknown guitar players from across the country. So I sent a tape into him and I got featured. And he gave me like a really great, a rave review, which was very exciting for me at the time. I think I was maybe 19 years old. And he had a record label called Shrapnel Records. And we began to talk about recording something, doing something. And that eventually ended up being with a band called Vicious Rumors, who he had signed to his label. They needed a guitar player. And so he kind of hooked us up. And I went out to the West Coast for like 4 months and worked on that record. And from there, I started to talk about doing my own solo record, instrumental, and started like really working hard on writing songs. And that became the Mind's Eye record. And that came out in 87, actually. And, did really well for me and kind of was the starting point, the launching pad for my career, I would have to say. Cooper was 1991. I had a record that I had just finished recording called Meltdown. We were in the studio mixing it, and that's when my manager called and told me that Alice was doing a new record and he was having guest guitar players on the record. And like he had like Slash and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Mick Mars. And they asked me to play on a couple songs, which was like, wow, totally an honor. So of course I said yes, I would love to do that. And it started out from there. It was just playing on the record. But then maybe a few months down the line, they were going out on the road and they called me and asked if I'd be interested in doing that as well. And it all kind of came about because we were signed through the same label, the same record label. And there was an A&R guy there that was working with Alice and me. And I think he's the guy who made the suggestion, put a word in for me or whatever. And that's how it all came about. And it was an awesome thing. I mean, for the studio work, it was being recorded in Bearsville, New York, at Bearsville Studios. And that was like a 4-hour drive for me. So I just drove up one evening to snowy Bearsville, uh, checked into the room, and then the next morning went right into the studio, met Alice, the engineer, the producer, and we just got right to work after we fixed my amp, which blew up for a second, but luckily it only needed a new fuse. So yeah, and I spent like 6 hours doing two songs, 30 Dreams and Hurricane Years, playing all the rhythms and the solos. We packed up for the day, went out to dinner, and then I drove home. So that was the first experience meeting Alice. And then going on the road, yeah, it was a real blast. I went out to LA. We rehearsed out there for about 4 weeks and started the tour in Utah and worked our way, to the West Coast and then all the way back to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And totally a cool experience. I didn't really step into character, but it was real theatrical, and that was something I had never been a part of. before. So, you know, it was a really cool experience just to kind of take that all in and watch it happen. And it was really unique. And, you know, glad I got to do it. But, you know, when I went out on stage, I just wanted to play the songs as best I could, and perform the best I could, and, you know, be me. Yeah, that was kind of right at the beginning of the grunge thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think Nirvana's album had come out yet, but it came out like soon after that. I think Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, they all had stuff out. And yeah, you could it was kind of sense a different feel at that point. Things were changing, especially when Nirvana came out. And I was out on the road after that record came out with my own band, and you could really see in the way people were dressing, and you know, everybody had a goatee with Doc Martens and flannel shirts. It was pretty crazy. You know, I didn't really see how it was that much different. I mean, it was definitely different from the glam stuff that was out in the late 80s, but musically, you know, that Alice in Chains and the Soundgarden stuff was pretty much, you know, rock oriented stuff. It didn't seem like totally different to me, but I guess there was definitely a different vibe. Man, for me, the best thing is to not like think too much at all. So I'll overthink things and I just kind of go with the flow, follow the inspiration. When I'm working on something for someone else, I just listen to their song and try to play what's best for the song and feel it.
Right.
And when I'm doing my own stuff, like writing, you know, same thing. You know, I just sit around with a guitar and get started, and then it starts to kind of flow and kind of let the process happen. He would show up at rehearsals and we would go through songs, and he would make decisions on which ones were going to make the set, and which ones were not going to make the set. And then on the road, honestly, we didn't see him a whole lot. We sometimes the first time I had seen him all day would be when he walked on stage, you know, so he kind of went his own way. And then sometimes he'd drive on the tour bus and we'd hang out. But, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of uh, togetherness because, you know, he kind of had his own schedule. But, it was just kind of show up and let's play through stuff and, you know, decide what's going to be in the set. And once we hit the road, that was pretty much it. The funny thing is the snake, you know, he'd bring out the snake, and I'm petrified of snakes. And I would always make sure I was really far away from him. And there would be people in the front row with snakes around their neck. And oh, man. And one time I was backstage and I was actually sitting on the snake cage and didn't know it. And somebody told me, and I jumped like 3 feet. So I have this innate fear of snakes. Must be able to play and deal with snakes. We were on our farewell tour, and Phil had a little bit of a health issue. And so I don't know really where it stands at the moment. I mean, I've heard him say he wants to do things, and I've heard him say he doesn't want to do more things. So we'll have to see where that goes. I'm not really holding my breath on that one. But my latest record was called Double Exposure. It's been out for a while now. And I've done some solo shows in Europe, and I have some shows coming up starting this Friday in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York. And yeah, I have some new songs I'm working on as well. So, you know, a new band and a new record sometime on the horizon.